Great, okay, let us do the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm gonna read the land acknowledgements. Pima County Public Library acknowledges the sovereignty of Native nations and acknowledges the 22 federally recognized indigenous tribes of the state of Arizona and those who inhabit Pima County. We honor the vast and often unrecognized contributions and sacrifices of indigenous peoples and are conscious of the ongoing experience of inequality and political invisibility. In partnership with Native nations, PCPL advocates for full access to its educational, informational, and recreational resources. We have the call to the public. Is there anybody? Great. We have the approval minutes from February.
Can I make a correction?
Yeah,
It has me meeting with Supervisor Scott and John Holliday. That was Maria Yannicone.
yeah,
That's a correction.
okay. Great. Any other corrections to the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes.
I've corrected?
That's corrected.
Okay,
I'll second
okay, great. All those in favor?
it. Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay. Great, they passed then. Introductions, I think we're good, honestly, good. Summary of current events by library board members.
Well, I didn't make it to the online high school graduation, sorry to say. However, I was really pleased to see that their newsletter included basically an advertisement for grads who apply for jobs here at PCPL. I think that was a really good move to encourage the participants in that program to come to work at the library.
Great,
That's great. So good work on that.
nice. Any other current events? All right, this is great. We got a lot of stuff in the bottom of the agenda. So, friends groups, Library Foundation reports.
Penny's from.
Penny, you're on mute, I think.
Okay, I am from the Friends of the Library, not the foundation. I just wanted to report that we delivered the requested $65,000 last month to the library from the proceeds of our sales. And we anticipate this was the second payment of our fiscal year and anticipate at least two more, equal or not or more. We will be participating at the Festival of Books. We have a booth with all the authors' books that are there at reduced prices. And then we follow it up with our regular members. And this month, it's a half price sale. And then our community sale, the member sale will be the 22nd and 23rd. The community sales will be 28, 29, 30, and 31st of March. I also wanted to bring out that at the home show, we will be highlighting another fundraiser that we're doing for the library, and it's called Clue Arizona. One of our paid employees runs this, and she does the theme will be Harry Potter. It will be taking place on August 29th, starting at 5 p.m., where they have games and dinner, and all the money that we get will go back to the Friends and then eventually go back to the library. We'll be at the home show if you want to ask questions about it. And I think that's March 30th and have a booth telling about the new type of fundraising that we're trying for the library.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Any questions for Penny? Okay.
Oh, and Amber, sorry, but you'll love retirement, let me tell you. You can become a volunteer.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Penny. Any other reports?
My name is Melinda G. McDaniel. I am a board member of the Pima Library Foundation. And I just wanted to report that we are on target for meeting our commitment to fund 15 career online high school scholarships and 25 mobile hotspots. And we're going to continue on our scholarship program.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions for Melinda? Nice, that's really great news. Any other reports? Okay, moving to new business. Rebecca Peralta resigned. She was our vice chair. Craig also resigned, so there's another open spot there. But Rebecca was a vice chair, which means we need a new vice chair. And I'd like to nominate John.
Thank you.
And then we,
I'd second that nomination.
perfect, okay. Anybody else have other nominations? Okay, any discussion? Great, let's just vote. All those in favor of John taking the vice chair position until we run elections again in just a few months? Who's counting though? You have to say aye. Aye. Online, aye, thank you, Anna. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, it carries, it passes. Now, finally, we have two guests. We have Gabriela Casares Kelly, we have Constance Hargrove, who are gonna talk to us about, voting centers in the library.
Would you like to sit here?
Oh, I don't know. Where would you like me?
I think this is great.
Okay.
It's a touch screen if you want to touch as you move through, or you can just.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't think we can. There we go. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Yanya Chugi, Gabriela Casares Kelly. This is Mochkuk Amjad. I'm with Kapima Chukran Ohandam. Hi, my name is Gabriela Casares Kelly. I'm from the communities of Bisinmo'o and Goop, which are located on the Tohono Nation, which is right here in beautiful Pima County. And I am your elected county recorder. Our office is responsible, as many of you know. I do like to share this information because you never know who doesn't know. Our office is responsible for voter registration and document recordation. So we are, of course, also responsible for early voting, and that is where you all come in. You are all very generous hosts. Let's see if I can do it here. Nope. Okay.
Let me share the screen. I forgot to share.
Oh,
So that the people on there.
sure, thanks. No problem. And I always introduce myself in the traditional way. It's really interesting and helpful, I think, in making connections where people are thinking more about, oh, she's from the Tohono Nation, but more importantly, I'm from the west end of Pima County, which that is very rural. Rural is in my heart and soul. We have additional challenges out there, so it's been a pleasure to serve. I've been in the role for this is now my 5th year. I just won re-election in the last election. And they say within our community that you aren't really fully onboarded until you have gone through a presidential election. And now I understand why.
For some reason I'm unable to share. But that's okay.
Oh,
We can send
we
it
will
out.
send out the slideshow later, and I think I'm gonna have to scroll down. Can I have you do that? Look disoriented here. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to be here to share was just a huge thank you. We utilize your libraries. We could not execute the election without the use of your voting locations. So next slide. The early voting sites number one, they are a pain in the butt a little bit. Because we are taking up your programming space. We recognize how difficult it is to kick a program or an after-school program or what have you out of these spaces to allow for the recorder's office to occupy them for 1 week. In the case of Oro Valley, for 2 weeks. We understand how huge of a lift that is, and the additional questions and confusion that brings. But this is such an important resource. Voters can resolve their voter registration issues. One of the things that our office is charged with is maintaining the voter rolls and keeping those voter rolls clean. The only way we can do that a lot of times is by having direct communication with the voters. And so, unlike election day, early voting sites, there's vote centers and there's early voting sites. I'm only responsible for early voting sites. They act as extensions of our office. And so we're able to provide the voter with clear instructions and the paperwork necessary to update their voter roll. So it's incredibly important resource. It's convenient for any voter. Often we hear about people who are election day voters who are adamant about voting on election day, who suddenly experience an emergency, such as having to leave town for work, or they're going to be gone longer than they expected, or there's a situation with their family members or something like that. It makes it very convenient, and it's really nice to be able to talk to a voter and say, your closest location is at this library. And because you are all amazing community resources already, people often say, oh, I know where that is. Absolutely, I'll go right there. In-person ballot drop-off is secure. It reduces election day volume. And there should have been a fourth one. Looks like I missed it. But it allows people to vote when it's convenient for them. So the next one. So the total ballots processed in the general election. We had, if you see, the election day ballots made up for 67,000 plus. Early ballots dropped off at early voting sites, 107,000. And the rest of them were received by the mail. Next. Our early ballots issued at early voting sites. So this is any person can walk into an early voting site, they present their identification, and they can request a ballot. This is even if a ballot was mailed and lost or what have you. But all of the libraries account for 22,000 of those site issued ballots. I was looking at this number here. The Fellowship Bible Church is our highest level, our highest volume location at 8,000, but they're open for 4 weeks. The recorder's offices, that would be our 3 locations, one downtown, one country club in Valencia, and the other on the east side. We received around 6,000. Sahuarita Community Center, 3,500. University of Arizona, around 2,000. Parks and Recreation, 1,600. Pascoyaki Wellness Center, around 400. And Toca Community Building in Cells, around 99. Next. The number of ballots issued by libraries, and again, I shared the number on the east side was 8,000. Oro Valley Library, 6,206. They were only open for 2 weeks. That is something that we're talking about in what the expectation will be in 4 years, again, in a presidential election year. But the volume there was so high that we had people outside the door before the location opened and well into the evening. And there was a constant line. One of the really cool things, though, people were so excited about having that early voting opportunity that there was very little grumbling about how long the lines were. People were expecting, they were understanding of that, but that's a very, very high number. The rest of these locations, the Vail Library was also open for 2 weeks, but the rest of the locations were only open for 1 week. So Wheeler Taft, 2,300, Miller Golf Links, 2,100, Woods, 2,000, Dunesbury, 1,800, Kirk Bear Canyon, 1,700, Valencia, 1,600, and that was a replacement site for our Richard Elias location, which was closed due to renovation. Ekstrom Columbus Library, 1,500, and the Salazar Ajo Library, 150, which of course is a very small location. Some of the unique things to the 2024 general election is that we provided a drive-through ballot drop-off at a few locations, including the Oro Valley Library. This was something that we specifically did to make that experience more accessible. It was really, I actually this was one of the few places where I personally got to spend my time and collected ballots. And a lot of times it was elders or people who are normally using wheelchairs or other walking aids who were driving through, or parents with their kids. And for them to come and drive through and just hand that ballot over and drive off was amazing. We had 18 early voting locations across the county. Normally we might have 15 in maybe a little bit of a smaller election. The midterms, we might have around 15. A smaller than that one, we might have 11. And every once in a while, we might have a jurisdictional election where we only have maybe one location. Another thing that impacted this election in particular was there was a court ruling change to voter registration requirements just a few weeks before the voter registration deadline, which required any new voter to also submit documentary proof of citizenship and residence, which meant that at the time of voter registration, we had to ask people for their birth certificates, their passports, and proof of something that tied them to their home address and their residency. And that was an added challenge. And because our locations work as extensions of our office, it was such an important resource, because without that, those voters would have been disenfranchised and would not have been eligible to vote. Next. We learned a couple of things in this election cycle, and we plan on meetings, eventually having a debrief with library staff to talk about what worked and what didn't. But one of the things that has already been identified is signage, providing that signage early on. We had intended to only provide that signage at the time of the early voting site, but people were so eager to vote in this election that they were talking about voting services a month before the election. And so we know that now going forward, that, you know, presidential election cycle, there's a lot of anxiety. And we'll work with the library staff to provide those helpful resources. And then also I was able to present at the library managers meeting before the election for general Q&A. And I think that was such an enlightening experience. These are people on the front ground, on the ground floor, who are dealing with voters and dealing with the additional headache that comes with that, and walking and talking through problems. It was really helpful. And then I personally provided my cell phone number, and you know, we shared it within that space, and I really reiterated to those librarians that they are VIP. They should be reaching out if there's any weird thing that happens. And we had several instances of things happening with maybe maintenance accidentally opening a door and breaking the seals, or alarms going off or anything like that. And we were able to resolve that so quickly. And so that was really, really great for us. Next. growth opportunities within our office, we are planning to deploy secure unattended ballot drop boxes, which means that there's a ballot drop off locations. Many of the libraries currently, there are book drops. And they specifically put up signage that says not a ballot drop off. And so to have that also within a few steps from those book drops, I think will help with that situation. We are working on a mobile voting unit that can be dispatched where voters need it. This is similar to the bookmobile. And we got that idea from the bookmobile. Just increased communications as a whole. We've been working really well with county comms and with the elections department to try to bring all of our communications together so that people can just understand where they need to go for their particular need. The needs of voters is incredibly diverse, especially during early voting. And so we want to make sure that it's easy for people to understand, and of course, multilingual. We will continue to provide all of that information and communicate that via our website, the shared county website, which is Pima.vote. Thank you, Pima.vote. And then we're happy to provide any voter registration training sessions for library staff. One of the number one places that people think when they think about where to go to register to vote is a library. And of course, those changes with court cases and also the legislature have been so swift. The face of voter registration has changed drastically. We strongly recommend that people, you're welcome to attend the monthly trainings that we have within our office. Or if there's a large group, we're happy to come to you and provide those services because you are also on the front lines. Those forms are housed in your facilities, and we want to provide that resource. Next, I think that is it. So, yeah, that is it. Are there any questions for me? All right.
No, we really appreciate it. And, Gabby came to our meeting voluntarily. A long time interest in library advisory board. You've been to meetings before. And so and we thought it would be a nice opportunity for her to.
The last time that I was here, not this, I came last month, but prior to that, I was an educator on the Thon Nation. I think I was working at Audubon High School at the time. And I was looking to find out why there wasn't a Pima County funded library on the Thon Nation. And I looked up the website, I'm looking everywhere, and I found the board. I had no idea that this existed. So I came here to a meeting and the chair at the time said, we are looking to find, since it's January and I was only able to come because I was a teacher, I was only able to come because we were on holiday break. And they said, we want our goal to be reaching communities we haven't reached before, but how do we identify them? And so I had kind of a SpongeBob SquarePants moment where I kind of raised my hand. I wasn't sure if the chair would even acknowledge it, but they asked me and I started talking about why I was there. And they found out that there was no bookmobile on the Thon Nation. There had been a number of years ago, and something happened and there was, long story short, it never was out in the community. And so they were able to get a bookmobile, I think within a month. After that meeting, we had conversation. The bookmobile started showing up in our community. I helped with some of the communications on it, just using my resources within the tribe. And within a month, we had 20 families who were being served in the 1 hour stop of cells of the bookmobile brand cells. So I know big things can happen from this group, and it's seriously a pleasure to be here. And recordation, the retention of records and files and data, and the research that's tied in, it's so similar to libraries. We are a kindred spirit, and so I plan to attend more of these meetings. This has been a standing meeting for me in my calendar. It's just taken me about 4 years to get here. I have a little baggie with some I Heart Election Worker stickers, and also voting nerd stickers. So I will, I'll pass around this bag, and you're welcome to take a few for union staff. And then we'll leave a couple out afterwards, but please share the love. Election workers really appreciate your support. So,
Thank you.
Hello. My board over here for the start calling. I'm Constance Hargrove. I am the elections director. So I'm following the recorder here. And just as Recorder Casares Kelly started out, huge thank you. First, thank you to Director Matheson for inviting me and the board for having me today. And huge thank you to all of the not election staff, may as well say your election staff now, but all of the library managers and staff that put up with being confused about, and it's everybody else being confused about the fact that we're two departments and not one. And so when, equipment is delivered for one, they think it's for the other, and then the other one shows up and like, but you're already here. So it's really funny. The way that it gets so confused. People do not know the difference, which is why we have Pima.vote, because no one knows that we're two separate departments. I run election day, a lot of other stuff, but I run election day. And so prior to 2022, libraries were used as polling places, but they were not used for training. So the impact that libraries have had since I've been here to allow us to not have to pay $1,200 for a location to train coworkers, especially when we're doing 3 and 4, 5, 6, that adds up. And being able to extend our training is huge. And so we're really, really, really thankful for that. Just a little bit of history, you guys probably already know this. Prior to 2022, Pima County had precinct-based voting, right? And then in 2022, the county changed to vote centers. So with vote centers, voters can vote anywhere, just like with early voting, they can vote anywhere. So there is really no way to predict how many people are going to show up on election day. With precinct-based voting, you pretty much know how many people, the max, will show up on election day, but with vote centers, you do not. So there's really no way for your staff to prepare for how many people may come through this library. So what I wanted to do today is to kind of show you just some numbers about the impact and how many people are actually flowing through libraries on election day, because it is a lot of people. And the other thing with precinct-based voting, it was pretty much a manual process. So it was paper. So a paper poll book with ballots. We had about 8 people, and that was it. With vote centers, it's now technical. So we have electronic poll books with ballot on demand printers. We have these huge cages. We take up a larger footprint than we did before. It's just a huge difference in the way that we voted in the way libraries were used prior to 2022. You want to help me out?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this slide basically goes over the 2022 primary, and you can see the number of individuals who actually access your libraries on election day, right? So this is a total number. I mean, I do have some details, but this is a total number. And as you can see, of this 2022, there was no training in libraries. They were all in hotels, right? So there was no training in libraries. If we break this number down, let's just choose a couple of them, go back. Woods Memorial Library. Oh, keeps going forward.
The back arrow on the keyboard.
Sorry, we'll be good on the general election. One more. Right there, perfect. So of the 1,069 individuals who actually came through the library and voted, 558 of those were dropping off ballots, early ballots, right? Kirk Bear Canyon, they love this library. As you can see, Kirk Bear had a total of 1,219 people come through. 515 of those people were dropping off early ballots. So there are several locations that have really high turnout volume. Go to the next slide. So we moved to November. And as you can see in November, we began using libraries for training. You can see 1 day, 2 days, 2 days here, 2 days there. Typically, the class size is between, now we cap it at 30, but when we first started, we had to train all these people. So it could be anywhere between 30 and 60 people, right? So when you see 1 day, that's 3 classes. That could be 90 people, right? Could be 120 people. It's a lot of people coming through the library on those days. And as a book nerd, I think that's good because you get people that come in, they may not normally come into the library. And if they have kids with them, then that's the opportunity for the kid to say, hey, what's that over there? And then they could go check out a book, right? So these are just a lot of stats. As you can see, Miller, 1,463, Oro Valley, 1,378. If we did not have the libraries to use, we would not be able to facilitate these elections the way that we do. People are very comfortable coming into libraries. They feel safe in libraries. So it is really, really huge. You can go to the next one. Okay. We begin to increase our training, right? We begin to take more and more of the days that other folks would have to be in those conference rooms or training rooms. And so 4 days at Kirk Bear, Valencia 2, Murphy, Ann Gibson, we just started using Ann Gibson, right? So Ann Gibson, lots of people flowing through here. But this was the presidential preference election. So the turnout was a lot lower on election day, but we still had to train all those people. So go to the next slide. June, you see the same thing going here. Oro Valley 1 day because I have to share with the recorder's office with their 2 weeks of early voting now, right? So so we have to get in there pretty early to get our training done. So because there's really nowhere else on that side of town to do this, right? So we really appreciate that. Look at Oro Valley's turnout numbers. 1,569 people came through the library on election day. That's a primary. That's a primary. Next slide. This is the big election we just had where people were lined up. Our training days decreased because we trained them 2 elections, 2 full elections. We pushed them towards our online training, and we only trained those new people. We required inspectors and marshals to come to training in person all the time. But so we were able to reduce those days for the general election. The turnout for this election, Miller is not that large, right? When you try to go in, this is the way that the setup is. When you get 2,000 people flowing in there with the setup, it's a lot of people. But like the recorder said, we didn't get a lot of complaints about people standing in line. We did a pretty good job getting the information out there, but this is the impact that you're having on the community by allowing us to use libraries. And so hopefully that makes the managers feel better when, when we take up their space and, you know, get things a little confused. Electioneering, I know, is a problem for some of you guys, and hopefully that will get better. But I just really wanted to show you some numbers. If you want more detailed numbers, I can give you that, but some numbers of the impact and the number of people that are actually flowing through the library during these elections. Is it? So anybody have any questions?
No, but thank you so much for taking the time to come and present to us and help us understand better, like how the libraries are being used as a resource by other county departments.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Your time to shine.
Yes, good.
Thank you. That's not me.
Okay, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about staffing. So we've gotten some updates about HR, we've gotten some updates about budget, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about where management and HR meet, which is staff. This is essentially, I'm doing an update from my section of the September presentation, just to talk about like how many gains we have made so that we can understand it. So we touched on this, there's a lot of information back then. So some of this might seem a little bit familiar, but we're gonna have some updates. So when we think about staffing, I really want to think about all the things that have to be done outside of just checking books out, as we talked about before, that our library staff do, our frontline library staff do every day, which is working the desk. They're in charge of the building, meeting with direct reports, plan and present story times, manage timesheets, write the daily schedule, manage on and on and on. So when you think about that, there's really like two components. There's staffing models, and then there's the daily staffing schedules that people have to do. I'm using 3 example locations when I talk today, because again, I use them in September. And they're also 6-day agencies. So Ekstrom, Columbus, Nanini, and Miller Golf Links libraries. They're very, very busy libraries. The first thing we did was standardized scheduling, which we've talked about before. So we've created a ratio, which puts together just these codes, which are essentially the bare minimum things that you have to do at the library branch every day to keep it open. But there's lots of other things that they have to do that are not secondary, but they could sometimes in an emergency situation get pushed to the next day. This is what basically a Monday at Ekstrom Columbus Library looks like. And their staffing ratio, part of our new initiative that we've been doing since January, is to create this ratio. So this is Columbus, and this is Nanini on Monday. You'll notice their ratios. And then this is Miller Golf Links on a Monday. So they're doing very well on a Monday. They're a 6-day agency. Mondays are traditionally, so a Saturday and a Monday, if you're spreading your staff across 6 days, those are going to be your shortest days. Half of your staff work the Monday, half of them work the Saturday. So that's just a sampling of what they all look like. How we came up with the ratio formula was essentially we took the number of staff that you have and divide it by those key service points across the day. So if the ratio is 5.2, that means on average, everyone in the branch is on desk doing those key things 5.2 hours of their day. As I've told our staff, if we marked everything we did, everyone's would be 8. And so we wouldn't be able to do it because we have staff doing so much stuff all day long. But this helped us standardize and speak the same language about scheduling, about what's important to keeping the library open. And if everyone is adopting it, then it's very easy. They all put it into one folder that's a shared folder that all of us in administration can look at. They can look at each other's. It's all very out in the open and great. So that's how the ratio is. This is the guide that we give to our staff. So anything that's a number between 3 and 5 is like thumbs up, you're doing awesome. That's what fully staffed looks like. If the number's creeping to 5 to 6, which means you're doing, primary desk work, primary keep the building open only work for most of your day, we say that that's sustainable for thereabouts 2 days. The 6 to the 6.9 range is when we're getting a little murky on needing coverage. That's really a 1 day. And then a 7+ is like, we need to send you help from either administration or from another location that's better staffed for the day. So that's the daily scheduling tool. That's been working really successfully. I feel like in combination with getting staff out to branches, we have really seen that it's really going wonderfully. We have a March 20th meeting with managers where we are gonna touch on it and we'll make improvements. We want to make it a continuously improved upon documents. They're gonna give us feedback after a 3-month trial and what could change about it, but we're really proud of this. And thank you very much to Renee, because Renee really built all of these spreadsheets for me in a wonderful way. So then that's the daily. And if you think of that as like zooming out to how you would look at the entire branch, we have a staffing model tool that kind of builds on that. So I'm going to break that down a little bit again. To start with how we analyze staffing, we want to think about the total open hours that a library is open to the public. So that's when they have to staff their desk. So this location has 46 hours that is open to the public. Most of their staff work 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 those days, but we don't count the hours that they're not open. This one's key, and this is a departure from how we've been doing things at PCPL, I think, pretty greatly, which is we wanted to understand capacity differently. Instead of just thinking every hour we staff a desk with 2 people and then someone in the back doing check-in and answering the phones, which would be 3 service points. We also wanted to understand that for some libraries, they're what I would call high impact, which means that they have a large number of incidents happening at their location every day, so that they have to assign a staff person at each hour to be responsible for responding to those incidents as the primary function of their job. And that's kind of what we call in charge. Also, some libraries have really, really high circulation and some have less circulation. So we set some parameters on what we would count as service points for each of those, because if you have a high volume of books and items that are coming in, then your permanent staff are doing circulation tasks basically every hour, whether or not that's shelving or doing holds or putting things in book lockers or things like that. So the cutoff was generally if you had more than 15, which this is a library that has a lot of incidents, but if you had more than 15 incidents in 6 months, then we counted in charge as a service point. If your circulation exceeds 100,000 items circulated each year, which this library doesn't, we count circulation as a service point. And then we asked for input because our back rooms especially are structured very differently across the system. So sometimes all the staff can answer the phone and they just all do from their desks. Sometimes there's a check-in, sometimes the phone and check-in are separate, things like that. So that determined how many service points. So the math there, let's see. So essentially they're doing 184 service point hours a week. So 46 times the number of service points that we have. So this is what the staffing tool looks like when we look at an Excel sheet, and it breaks all the staff down. So how I've explained it to staff is that you have different buckets of work for everything that you do. Some of it is public facing and it's service points, some of it's administrative work, and some of it's programming work. And it just depends on how your job is defined, how much work you have. So this is how we allocate the staffing per week. So we've taken frontline positions, and these are how much of each of their week is dedicated to staffing service points. This is how much of it is administrative. And then if their job has a programming component to it, this is how many hours a week in general of their 40 hours a week would be dedicated to programming. This is, so we've done so much hiring, we've talked about it so much. I had this chart up in our September meeting, and these were examples of libraries that we had that had zero programming capacity as we were using that tool. If we were using that tool to determine whether or not they were going to do programming like paid presenters or story time or read to a dog, they actually didn't have the capacity to do them at all, although they were doing it. But I just wanted to say they didn't. And since we've been able to hire, we've brought Manini up to 35 hours a week of programming capacity. We have Columbus at 23 hours of programming capacity, and we have Golf Links at 12 hours of programming capacity. So there's still some room there to add some more staff to get everybody, according to their community's needs, a little bit more in line. And we still do have a little bit of some service point gaps, but overall, we're just improving like leaps and bounds. And I just really wanted to highlight that. This is another part of the spreadsheet that we've basically set guidelines for how much preparation time for a certain amount of program that you would do. So this is some guiding documents for staff. We've done training on this with managers. And again, we're going to revisit it and we're going to use it in our March 20th meeting, all-day staff meeting with them. So, but we're particularly proud of this snapshot of improvements. So as an update, what are we doing for our next steps? So as I said, March 20th, we've got a manager retreat. We have PCN asks, so permanent position asks that we're moving forward with Anthony. Marisa and I are working right now to have a little bit of creativity with some positions that we are continuing to have a hard time hiring for. So we're looking in job classifications that might have been folks that lived in community engagement. Those positions lived in community engagement more. Maybe they pay a little bit more. And we're thinking about creative ways that we can actually use those positions in public services so that we can entice people to apply for them and have some more leadership opportunities. We're using this along with other gate count programming, the community survey to make data-driven decisions, and we are planning a strategic expansion of ours. So as I've been saying to staff is that it's going to be strategic and data-driven, but it's very important that the message we have sent all week to our staff at our regional meetings is that our community, the workers in our community need to be able to access the library at times when they're available to do so. And so that's how we're moving forward. So that is our staffing update. Do you all have any questions?
I just want to say, I think it's fantastic that you are quantifying everything. I think it's probably very gratifying to the librarians who do programming to see that acknowledged in a quantitative way, because I think that I sort of like, I just pull it out of the air. I would like to know what the ratio is for the main library. I like to see the progress in these other branches.
Yeah.
And I would love to see a ratio that's more like PCNs to hours open, like for the whole system. But it's fantastic.
Yeah. I think we can come up with some numbers that are the number of positions and the number to hours of think about that. Maine is unique because of the number of floors, but this was inspired by some of the work that Lindy and Michael did. Maine always has had a different schedule.
I used to create this.
Exactly, and I used to also create the schedule. And so it's always like a different piece. And I think when you work at Maine, you start to think like this a little bit more. And I think that it's really good training for people for scheduling. And getting the branches to do that is a little different.
And I was always looking for software, never found any.
Never find it. I know. So we just kind of like, I was in my, we were joking that I was in my Beautiful Mind era, like last summer, because I was just like, I have like a whiteboard in my office and I was just like writing all these weird formulas all the time and stuff, because it was really important, because it's been frustrating. It's been frustrating my whole career. And then as we were doing hours expansion, the push and pull of this is like, we really need to get to a place to.
Yeah, and it helps you to like just instantly pinpoint, well, which branch is really in trouble. When there is a help, do you get alert?
No, I mean, they call us, and
They-
so we just know that 7 is the help number. And honestly, there's some libraries that are quite busy, like Ekstrom Columbus has a lot of incidents. And they don't have an assistant manager right now, so that might be a time when they're in a 6 that we're gonna still send someone. And so it's really like a communication with your library services.
And do you count intermittent as equivalent to a full-time person?
What we've been doing is taking intermittent hours like sub-librarian or extra hours, and we've been adding it to the total. So we create the total bank for the week and of capacity. So if everyone is here, this is your total number. But what we've also been taking into is average leave usage over 6 months because for the branch. And so we minus that from the total to get the real number. And then if you have substitute librarian hours or you have extra hours at your location, then we add that back in and that gets you to the number. For pages, I am doing this, we have another task force called the Intermittent Staffing Task Force, and we're essentially applying the same concept. So right now, branch managers and page supervisors are filling out a survey talking about how long most of the primary tasks take to do at the branch, and then we'll compare it to the data about circulation and computer usage and things like that to understand how to give them a budget. We've strayed from having a budget of page hours that the branches as we've had less and less pages. And so that's our first step to hiring pages.
At the last meeting, we talked about the PCN asks,
Mhm.
and you were hesitant about promising how much having those extra positions would affect the ability to expand opening hours. Are we at a place yet where we can make some guesses about what the extra positions would mean for the expansion of services or hours?
Yeah, I mean, my goal is Sundays. So strategic Sundays, which I said last month. I don't know how many locations we'll be able to get. It's a expand, once you have the day and you have the staffing for the day, extending the hours within the day is really easy. It's like one staff person you could add extra hours at the front and the end of the day. Getting enough staff to cover the whole branch is difficult. So I haven't looked at all 27 locations. I've looked at like, I don't know, probably 8 of them so far. And my ask for the LSMs is that they're doing it for their locations and then moving up to the 20th. So next week, we're gonna come and have a meeting all together. So we like already know where they are generally speaking. But I would love regional Sundays at least. So that's the goal I want to get to. We have to see, there are still some gaps, like Miller Golf Links only having 12 hours of programming capacity. Miller Golf Links and Manning are one's on the east side and one's on the northwest side, and essentially they're serving mirror communities. And so I want Miller Golf Links to have 35 hours of programming capacity. Now there's gonna be a push and pull, like, are we gonna get them to 35 and then move them over, or are we gonna like, they'll just continue to have less and we're gonna try to get them up to 35 while we move over to Sundays. I'm not, that's still in discussion. But I really want to see north, south, east, west Sunday locations so that people will at least be able to know that they can go to the library 7 days a week in the area of town that they live, and even if it's not their neighborhood library.
Can we take it off screen share in case Maria and Anna have any comments?
Pam, I think you've done a really great job on this, and specifically though, I want to say how pleased I am to see that you factored in planning time and also the incidents, because incidents really do, take time, right?
Yeah.
So, good job.
Oh, thank you.
You should maybe sell that.
Sounds like Renee is a partner.
Yeah.
Get some brains.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, moving on. Unfinished business, the downtown library.
Okay. So last time we talked a little bit about downtown library, but there was a lot of information and we felt that we wanted to kind of revisit that and give some more background to it. And I think I'm just gonna pull up PowerPoint for us, but one of the things that I wanted to talk about first, just to sort of kick it off, is that there have been some questions about how we got to where we are with repairs of the main library. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about our process in every year when we do the budget, we also think about capital improvement projects. And there always was in the library budget historically money to do repairs and things. But several years ago, we came up with a plan of doing an actual capital improvement project that was just deferred maintenance. So we usually try to have $1 million or so set aside to do those kinds of projects. But everything, that's the wrong number.
I think it's the $1 million, yeah, the cash flow, the deferred maintenance that kind of goes to interiors, exteriors, and it used to be parking lots, and we've added EV chargers in because EV chargers are a component, but that's completely separate from our normal capital projects that we oversee as well.
Right.
So there's a big list
Yes.
every year.
So anyway, there are always a lot of things, of priorities to have, and so you can plan for things, and we do. We've done a lot of work on the main library. We've done lots of renovations over time. You've seen them. It's not that there wasn't work done, but were big projects that just, sometimes the priorities are shifting. So maybe the elevator should have been replaced, but we had to do 3 roofs that year or whatever. So that I don't want it to sound as if we've been negligent in taking care of this building. Things have been happening over time. But I'm gonna turn it over to project and design. So you met Marty and Rod last time. So we'll take it, they'll be up next. And then after that will be Anthony, and then Em and Luis and Marty. And these are all the areas that we're gonna cover. And I won't read that to you because you can read. So go ahead.
Yeah, Marty Quell, I'm Deputy Director of Projects and Construction. Our director's back here, Rod Lane.
Hello.
Yeah, we wanted to talk with you a bit about our department, our role in the county, how we support the library and other departments. So the bulk of what we do a lot of different things, but what I'll focus on here is our role in capital improvement projects plan. You'll hear different terms for that, CIP. I try not to use too many acronyms in here after the last meeting, but we tend to use them at the county. But I've kind of found 5 main key points related to this. So, capital planning and budgeting is a big part of what we do. So working with departments like the library, create 10-year plans, put budgets in there so they can look ahead and kind of cash flow and kind of see how things are rolling. We can get ahead. It's a dynamic process and changes every year as we update. Probably the majority of what we do is delivery of projects. And so that's kind of our title. That's the design and construction piece. And that's managing that process start to finish with our partners, in this case, the library. Stakeholder and community engagement is a big part of that process. It's involved with every project, no matter how big or how small, each one's different, unique. And we can get a little bit more of that a little bit later. And then we coordinate with all other county departments. So while the library might be our client in this case for a project, there's a lot of other departments that have input on that, from facilities management, IT, it goes on finance. And so that's kind of our role too, is to kind of work as a team and make sure all the other departments have their input. Next slide. Our department, just specific, we're about 40 staff. We're architects, engineers, landscape architects, construction managers, interior designers, a lot of professionals. We hire professionals out in the community. We are not, I should have said, we are a new department in Pima County, but our role and a lot of our staff is not new to the county. Myself used to be part of facilities management. We merged with another department to bring all the project management in the county, or at least the bulk of it, in one department. We do a lot of projects each year. I think on the building side, we range from maybe as low as 30 million a year up as high as 100 million a year of delivery of projects. They range from, our department does really small stuff that could be a small renovation for an office area, all the way up to, we have a couple projects right now that are over 40 million. We recently completed the office of the medical examiner, Country Club. That was a $44 million job. We're working on the Northwest Service Center right now, which is the former Golden Pin Lanes project. It's about 42 million. So big projects, all different sizes. We worked in every library. We have 4 projects we've completed in the last 10 years. And I'll show you those in a minute here. We have two in progress right now. It's one's in design, one's in construction. So pretty good experience in all the libraries. All of our staff's touched at least one of them in their time, no matter how long it's been at the county. So these are the 6 that we've completed in the last 10 years. We also put the budgets on there. So when we get into budgets, we kind of can see some interesting trends here. The costs go up and as time goes on, but our current ones now are Richard Lee's Mission Library. That's in construction. Will be complete late summer, hopefully. I'm sorry, be complete late this year, open it up early next year. And then Libraries and Design is a really unique one. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Nice small neighborhood library. Interesting stakeholder group, very, very vested in that library. Myself, I managed already the library. That was one of my own personal projects managing. Thank you. So I want to talk a little about cost estimating. There's the $86 million renovation cost of this building. There's another number out there to do an alternative approach to it. And the number is pretty shocking when you see it, but I wanted to kind of talk about what makes up a cost estimate. And I also want to say that it is just an estimate, right? Nobody knows what the actual cost is. It won't be known until the project's complete. And so this is planning level estimating. So we're making a lot of assumptions. There's a lot of contingencies. We're having lots of meetings about it, and we're talking about opportunities or trying to figure out what's about this library and what it needs, but there's still, it's at a planning level. We use historical data. One of my big go-tos is what did the last library cost? And so, while they're all unique and have their own costs, there are a lot of similarities. They need a lot of similar things. A lot of reference documents. So this would be construction indexes online, a lot of resources out there, publications. We also reach out to consultants and contractors. If I need to check a number, some cases we actually hire them to put together the estimate. So we get somebody checking our number. They'll be quick to tell you as well that it's just an estimate. It's really only as good as that they publish that thing. So, and then here's some considerations that, go into all of it. So, the size of the facility, big or small, could swing either way on what the cost per square feet is location. So like specific to this library, downtown is very expensive to build in. It's really challenging, and there's a premium for building downtown. Complexity, multi-story, things like that. How old is the facility? If we're renovating a pretty new library, it's a lot less work than a really old one. And then at the end, you have a projected start. So when will it start? We know escalation is occurring. It's been pretty heavy recently. So when that starts is what the estimate's looking at, identifies a date. So that the farther out, if you look on the 10-range plan, capital plan, stuff at the 10 years out, a lot more expensive than stuff that is this year. I mean, you could go on. So in our estimates, and this was in the memo that went to the board, there's kind of 5 key areas. So there's the direct construction cost. And at this level, it's really just a square foot cost. We don't have designs. And then we kind of try to look at that number and try to see what else we need to put in there. There's something unique about it. In the case of main library, it's not just an interior design or interior square foot cost. There's the exterior building needs to be dealt with. So the estimate has a separate line for that. Lots of soft costs. Some groups don't understand that. They think construction cost is the only cost, but there's permits, fees, consultant fees, there's internal labor charges that get charged to the project. Lots of furniture and equipment. It's very expensive, but it's very important and needed. Libraries probably have the most IT infrastructure of any building we're doing right now. They're up there at the top. It's just heavy, especially of recent years, just more and more stuff. It seems like each project there's something new introduced from it, whether it's a laptop charger or something else unique, people counter, trying to get data. And then contingency is important. That's there to protect the project. There's always unknowns, so typically have a pretty high contingency. It could range from 15 to 25% early on. That contingency is reduced as the project gets closer to starting construction. And then the big unknown is the last one, escalation. Nobody really knows. It's always looking backwards, trying to figure out what escalation is today. While it was trending around 4% last year, I just saw recent data that it ticked up. And then what are a lot of people talking about now with the president, tariffs out there? We're already seeing numbers move up even though the tariffs aren't even in place, which is kind of scary and irritating, but that's the reality of what we live in. So, to talk a little bit specifically about main library, thinking about what I showed in the previous slide is, the interior construction cost, and that's the square foot cost of another library multiplied by the square foot of this building, which is 90,000+ when you count all the ancillary areas. That deferred maintenance piece includes all that stuff so that's the exterior, the elevators, all those big pieces of equipment that you typically wouldn't have in that square foot cost number. And that came up to that 54, and then I added on the 4 at the bottom are just multipliers based on percentages or uniqueness of it. So there's the sub cost, the furniture, contingency, and escalation. That's where the 86 comes from. I don't know if there are any questions on that. I can break it down further. And then, what's interesting is the appraised value of this building is 20.5 million from 22. So when you start to look at 86 million, how could it cost that much? Versus a $20.5 million building, it's just shocking to me. I don't think that anybody's seen that number so big, but the reality is, I know that's where we think it is today. The further we go out, the more expensive it gets. And I think that this budget estimate had construction starting in about a 3-4 year time span. So that's what the escalation was factored around. So that's kind of the makeup of the 86. The memo that went to the board gave a range. It showed, I think it was a 72 to 86, but we haven't seen much coming low these days. It's been a while, so going with the low number is probably pretty risky in my opinion.
This does not include the exterior.
It
does.
Yeah, so the exterior is the deferred maintenance piece.
Okay.
And the reason I separated it out, and there were some questions specifically about it, and it skews the cost of the construction compared to a lot of other libraries. For example, Mission Library. Cost per square foot, if you do the math on it, it was like, I think it was in the high 2s, where this is in the high 3s. If you add in all that exterior work and elevators, which it doesn't have, the number starts to push up into the 4s, and it's not really an apples to apples comparison. So the way I put them together is identify that typical construction cost and add any specifics to that maybe that project unique.
On the renovation cost, which is the biggest part of this, then you don't really know at this point what we're renovating for, right? Because the exact, or do you? Do you know what the plan would be to renovate? Is it going to be a mixed use building, or is it going to be all library?
These costs here are to renovate this building back to a full library.
Back to a full library.
Yeah.
And is a renovation, is that like taking it down to the studs, or is it?
Very well could be, yeah. So this was completed in 1990, 1981, somewhere around there. Just look how the library have shifted since then. I think there's definitely areas we could keep. But I do know that when we try to do renovations in existing buildings that aren't large capital projects, you typically try to be pretty conservative with them in the approach, knowing that eventually they'll probably have a larger wholesale renovation. So they may not have the funding. It might be something coming more out of operations. So they try to do as little as possible typically. A lot of times it's just furniture. I know we do a lot of furniture projects here. It's not really any type of renovation, maybe moving an outlet or something very simple. Yeah, I think basically the square foot cost is applied to the entire building, assuming a pretty large renovation. So we took this snippet from the memo that showed kind of the delta between. It's kind of lead into the next piece of, what $86 million to renovate this building. An alternative location renovation is probably somewhere around 29 is where we looked at. In the report, I used an average, so you'll see kind of the number is the $54 million savings, the delta between those two averages. I would think it's comparable, and a lot of part of it is the big drop is the sheer size of things. So it's go down to a smaller size and cuts its cost way down. I think that's it on my portion.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I know like the big concern is really what's really happening with the main library, right? And so it's really our focus in the library is trying to make sure we discuss main renovation, but an alternate downtown location, right? Because the big thing is Pima County remains committed to the presence in downtown. We know the need for that for the communities that it serves, and we have never really swayed, or it was never our intention to leave downtown. So as Marty alluded to, the estimated cost for renovations, 86 million. Alternate downtown location that they estimated was 29 million. And so the net savings is 54 million. And so the question is, well, what can 54 million go to, right? If we choose the alternate downtown site, that's other capacity for other things that the library could look forward to as our communities kind of expand and the needs of our communities grow. So 54 million is 1 year's expenditure budget for the library, roughly. Right now, our current year is 48 million. We're asking for 56.9 million next year. So it covers 1 full year. Or, we talked about it's an estimated 22 million to buy land and construct a new El Pueblo library, which is a big need in our community. That estimation is 16 million in building and construction, that we use those figures that are actually already in our CIP budget from another location to kind of net that out. And then we estimated about $6 million to purchase land based off a location that we've actually seen out there. There's a flyer for a location out by Miller Golf Links that actually one of our staff has, provided to us because they have a shared location with another city. And so that was something that we utilized, right? Additional 1.3 million operational costs would go into that new library for staffing and other associated fees, which is stuff I pulled from our cash flow as well, because some of our new libraries, we layer in future ongoing maintenance and operation costs in there. You could add an additional 2 million in hard copy and electronic materials purchases, add 22 FTE, which totals about $1.6 million. Another thing that we looked at from this savings, right? We could do something similar to Mesa Express Library, where we have an unstaffed location where people could go in with a specialized card and get access to library materials a little bit more on demand, right? So we are future looking with this, these things in mind. But even if we had all these other things, that would still save us 23.5 million as opposed to going all in here with the main library as it currently sits. And so that would be tough, right? I mean, it's really fiscally responsible to look at all their alternatives in the downtown area, but still maintain a presence down here, and that's our priority.
So in part of reintroducing this work, we realized that we haven't had an opportunity to really talk about the in-depth community. We've heard that from you, and it's really been, in my mind, a miscommunication, because we've been going through, for example, the Himmel remodel community process, and we haven't really explained to you the in-depth way that we engage with the community to help understand for any library remodel what they want and how to drive the remodel process. So Marty, if you want to talk about this part a little bit.
Yeah, we thought it'd be good to share with you a typical project, the process, what happens before we shovel hits the earth, I guess, for lack of a better term. So the kind of main phases, there's that planning and budgeting piece we're kind of at now. We're talking about the main option. There's design and permitting. It's usually running about year to year and a half, depends on the complexity of the project and on the community engagement you have or amount of issues you might potentially run into. There's construction bidding. Construction is another long phase. It can run anywhere from a year and a half to 2 years, depending on complexity as well. And then there's furniture, equipment installation, library staff occupies and open to the public. So that's typically 4 years, maybe a little bit more depending on the project. I think the piece we want to focus in on is what's the community and stakeholder input during that design phase. While we call the design phase, there's a big portion of that, and you can go ahead next one, I believe that's not design. We call it design phase, but it's not what you would think of design and documentation, trying to figure out what that is. It's really a deep dive into trying to figure out, I'm an architect, and so always our approach to solving problems is the way it's taught to us is you must find the problem, and you figure out what that is, and it's not for me to define. It's for me to reach out to our stakeholders to tell us what their needs are, what their goals are. And so, before any of that starts, we need to define who those stakeholders are, and typically working with the library, and then even just thinking about the community who may have input in other county departments. And it's specific to the project, each one is unique. Downtown would definitely be unique. A lot of different stakeholders, neighbors nearby the businesses. And then we develop an outreach plan. So that typically, we're sitting down with the library trying to find who are all those community groups. There's quite a few groups, even within the library staffing. We met with the Many Nations team. I've learned quite a few of them. There's several other ones. And then from there, how are we going to gather that information? What's the best way? I should say at this point, we've hired a design consultant too. So we're managing that process, and they're asking a lot of questions of us as well. They're trying to learn as much as they can about the library system and the community. And so we've done a lot of stuff, and I think we've gotten better over the years. The first couple that we did probably had a lot less community engagement, but it's everything from the surveys the library puts on, multiple public meetings within the library, a lot of communication about those meetings, from digital communication, email blast to all library card holders, flyers within the libraries for people who maybe aren't tech savvy or have phones and that type of stuff. We've done focus group type stuff. So if there's a group that maybe you don't want to do a public forum, you want to do a specific meeting with just them, we've done that type of thing. We've toured other libraries. We went and toured one of the libraries on the reservation for one of the projects, Mission Library. So trying to see what other libraries are serving that type of that patron type. What are they doing? Maybe they thought of something we haven't thought of. And like I said, our goal is really to find what the needs are for the project before any design starts. No preconceived notions. It's hard to do that, but start to think. Just let's gather the input first, and then let's start thinking about what the design is. Go ahead. And so I just thought I'd show some stuff of what we've done. That picture on the bottom right is the tour on the library on the reservation. I can't not remember the name. And then we're meeting with staff. These are the types of surveys we've done. So we're pulling data all the way to cards on the left, where somebody can just grab a card coming in, circle, kind of give question prompts. They can circle stuff, drop it in the box, make it as easy as possible. Or we're actually doing workshop groups where we're taking notes down. They've done things like where, people get stickies and they highlight their what they love most about the library, what they like the least. And we're really trying to gather that information. You can go ahead and have the next one. I think we wanted to talk a little bit about Himmel though, because it has been, it's had a lot of community involvement, probably the most so far. And so, I knew going right in, being in the San Luis neighborhood and just hearing some of the stories. We hired an architect who worked on the Benedictine, yes, and had a lot of trouble with the community, a lot of pushback, project got stalled. So we knew from the beginning that we had to really reach out, cast that net really wide. And so we had public meetings. I think we had several public meetings before it really got started. We did public meetings when we had some ideas, so we could just kind of test the waters, what are people interested in. Lots of staff meetings. We met with the Steve Kozachek at the time he was the council member, Ward 6. We met with had Leader Hall, Supervisor Grijalva and their staff and got input from them. They gave us additional contacts in the community we should reach out to because they know the constituents better than our team does. Then we did a lot of our typical stuff with surveys and, online paper copies, different things like that. Neighborhood associations, we went to Sam Hughes Neighborhood Association, meeting at Sandy School. Had some specific groups in Friends of Park and City of Tucson Parks and Recs within the park. So trying to understand who our neighbors are there. So a really unique process, lots of feedback. It's gone quite well too. I was a little kind of worried going into it that might get some pushback, but everybody.
I was really worried. I mean, I
Right.
really, so far, it's, I mean, I live in Broadmoor and I've seen between Benedictine Monastery and Reed Park, different local improvement projects, and I understand how invested in Hamlet Park. It's not a historical building, but it's historical adjacent. I really want, I push for us to show this example because I think that it's been going really well.
I think that neighborhood has wanted improvements for like 40 years, so I don't think that was a big surprise. Because it's very, very wanted.
But one of the challenges we have had is it's a small neighborhood. It's very unique and has a little bit of history to it. We had some people really want to be more, bigger. Some even wanted a 2-story library and everything. So trying to balance all these different kind of opinions about what it should be and what, it's well, I say everybody's happy. You're never gonna get 100% of everybody happy and accepting of, but trying to find that balance. Trying to tell them we have listened. Like one of the things we got pushed back on was the staff area. Why is the staff area so big? So we showed them a lot of data on why the size of the staff area compared to other libraries in the county, compared to the circulation of that library. And it was shocking. I didn't realize that until we really got in depth on it and why the staff deserves the appropriate space to provide the services. I think it was well received too. It kind of, we said we're trying to balance where we're doing improvements. Public area, meeting, collections area, staff area, all three should be served equally well. Without making it a large library like Sauer or something else. It's not the right fit for that location.
I just think I meant to say we were expecting a lot of strong opinions. Just in that way, we'll get a lot of strong opinions through the main remodel project.
Yeah,
that's
that
what.
neighborhood is very, very organized and very powerful.
And I think there were strong opinions, I mean, especially among staff. Staff had been there for a long time, they knew what they needed and were very vocal about it. But I think with this process, what was really important is that they felt heard through a lot of it. I think it's been really, like, the touch points have been really great, and also I think too, what I really was, wanted to highlight with this too is I think with Himmel, it was very unique. I think you all have a baseline of what you do with community, public and community engagement, but I saw you all flexing quite a bit too. I mean, Himmel staff, I think you did way more staff meetings with that staff than probably any other project because they really needed to, talk through a lot of, the design and that sort of thing. And then also really think again, the feeling heard part was really important. And I think you guys did a great job of flexing to that.
All right, I think this was really helpful. Thank you to everyone for putting this together. I think it was comprehensive. I think it was very informative. Are there questions?
A couple, yeah. I guess the first step here would be to get the input from the stakeholders, the staff and the government officials, downtown businesses, downtown residents. Is that to see if they're even interested in renovating this building or moving somewhere else. So would that be the first step?
I'm not sure you want me to answer that. If the project was moving forward, we would start that community engagement process. That's what I would say. That's when my role would come in.
Okay, that would be the first step.
Yes.
I had a similar question though. I think it's nice to see mapped out the community engagement that would go into looking at an alternate space. But what is the process and who are the decision makers on deciding whether the renovation here is going to happen or if the move is going to happen?
Because how often does the county renovate a city property?
Well, quite a bit, actually. We've done, I think, 3 of them, and Mission is the most currently
But
city
Kimball
property.
becomes a county property.
Mission as well. Columbus,
So that seems to be the pattern.
on those smaller libraries, yes, it has been. The appraised value of those libraries is pretty small, and a small renovation actually initiates the IGA to become our library.
Okay, but back to my question, which is like, for making the decision of renovation or moving, who is the decision maker on that? And is there gonna be a community engagement or input or education process to go along with that?
So and if there's interest, we want to gauge your interest, to be quite honest with you, as a first step. This library advisory board is here for a purpose, right? To give us some guidance in that and give a little bit more of a gauge of where we're going. The interest from us as a county is if there's a potential of a building available. I don't want to rush anything. I mean, realistically, I mean, you're thinking as a community member, feel rushed, or, I mean, I know last time, it's just, there's opportunity, right? There's an opportunity that may not be there. And so the idea of renovating or actually moving, we'll start with some conversations here with the staff, right? And get an idea of kind of where we're going. Ultimately, if there's some interest in that, we have a really short timeline to move on the purchase of another building. Here's what's unique and challenging for us in this whole kind of paradox, right, or quandary, right, is we don't own another building here. Right, so that's where it's such a more of a conceptual kind of understanding. I think if there's an opportunity to do something that's gonna meet the needs of this library staff, right, to do the things that they feel we need to do, and at a price tag that's much less expensive, and makes fiscal sense, it would make sense for us to move forward with that. So we want to start with you all and giving you opportunity to give us some guidance, kind of as community members and the board, before we begin having a little bit more in-depth discussion with staff here. But after that, if staff is kind of willing, we'd like to move forward potentially with that whole process of more of a move, if there's a willingness to do that. If there's not a willingness to do that, then I think we have to talk a little bit of what it's going to take to kind of move into a renovation here. That's going to be a longer term process. So right now, we're in that decision-making point where we'd like to get some signals from you all, kind of where your thinking is, followed by conversation with the staff here, because we have that opportunity. If that opportunity falls off because someone else, then we're kind of more talking about renovation just by default. Right, so that's really there is an opportunity. If we decide that we're getting signals from library advisory board and staff here, that sounds like a good idea, and it's going to meet everyone's needs, then we go into a community engagement process relative to the move.
Okay.
That seems logical to me, which would then begin to have discussions with the purchase of the building, all that. Again, this way it's awkward is we don't own them. That makes sense. But we also don't want to invest in another building if we feel we're not getting really clear guidance or affirmations, right? Those are most of that.
Okay, that's helpful. And then who would be the ultimate decision maker, or like what body makes the ultimate decision?
Ultimately, it'll be our board. Right, with some boards can also want to know what does the library feel about this, right? And I want to be able to speak honestly, right? If what you all feel is like, I think your input's super important at this stage, because that window may not be there in a few months, right? And so, again, urgency is there only because there's a potential of a building, not for any other reason other than that.
And this is the Wells Fargo building.
That's correct.
Anna.
Thank you. And thanks for all of the information. That was very helpful. Just looking at the amount of money that would have to go into bringing the current main library, back to its glory is just, it's mind-boggling. And the fact that we do not own the building, and I don't think we will ever own the building, given, you know, the issues with the parking structure. And, you know, recently we got some information saying that the city at this time does not have any plans, you know, to put any money into helping with the rehab of the building. You know, I think it's wise to look at, you know, other locations. Now, my concern has always been, you know, if we're gonna, you know, find another location for the main library, what are we gonna do in the meantime? You know, I wouldn't want to see library services taken away for a long time while we, you know, renovate a different building. So, but looking at the amount of money that it would take and what could be done with that money if we, you know, just looked at an alternative site, I'm starting to think that that's the way to go. The main library has served its purpose, you know, for a very long time. I I feel badly that, you know, the city honestly hasn't lived up to its part of the MOU, which is why, you know, we're at the place where we are now. But, you know, I just can't see pouring that much money into a facility that, again, is valued at way under what we'd be spending, you know, to rehab it. And then the fact that we would never own it. Or if we could own it, you know, would we really want to for, you know, what we would end up spending? So those are my thoughts. And, you know, and of course, looking at the possibility of getting a new El Pueblo library, to me is, you know, that's something that I have always felt that we need more resources on the south side. So to get a bigger, better El Pueblo library out of it, you know, I that kind of cinches it for me.
Thanks, Anne. Any other feedback?
Well, I don't like to see the libraries pitted against each other, and I agree El Pueblo needs a new location. But it's just like, I am very disappointed that, you know, the city took 4 bullet points to say drop dead. And, you know, like, that's the end of that. And just because Wells Fargo, you know, the window is open, that doesn't make it the right match. You know, I feel like just because these two things happened at the same time, I don't think that's necessarily the best solution. So, yeah, you know, if the city's not willing to turn over the parking garage, everything else, and again, you know, we know that the building has been sinking for years and so forth. But I still feel like you need to know more about the Wells Fargo building because, and so we're not saving 54 million that we get to spend someplace.
No,
No, I mean, it just means, oh, we, you know, both city and county are saying we deferred the maintenance, we broke it, we're done with it, which is very disappointing. I think the public is gonna say, well, why would we fund your next little joint venture? You know, like you did this. It's a bad look.
The Wells Fargo building is an attractive looking building. But my main concern would be the community input phase, the stakeholders, other staff, of course, but also downtown business owners, downtown residents. What are they thinking as far as the city of Tucson goes? Maybe if they understand it, we're ready to move out, maybe they start paying their fair share of the facade, but maybe not. But they just go on the money. Okay. Well, and that, yeah, but the downtown business owners, downtown residents, I'd like to hear what they have to say. Even if it means missing out on the Wells Fargo building. Although it doesn't seem like the economy is in a place where people are buying up downtown buildings to live with.
I know Supervisor Hines is aligned with the goal here as well to have a library space in downtown. For me, I'm really curious about staff input and particularly what the staff of this library wants to see in a space, what they feel is difficult about this space, which you've explained already in terms of like it's hard to see the whole building, right? But also like what a different space would mean in terms of services offered, programs, because what I particularly don't want is getting ahead of where like community knowledge lies, right? In terms of it being a surprise and then it's like Valdez is closing. And there were so many things that we could have gotten excited about in the draft futures report that were overshadowed by talking about library closures and like, can we set it up in a way that people have something to be extremely excited about? And I think that does start with talking to the staff and getting a really solid idea of the needs there and what they see for improvement and, maybe people want to stay. I don't know. I'm kind of with Anna in terms of it isn't making sense. I'm not sure. I do agree with you that in terms of like talking about it in terms of we have $54 million to do like we don't actually have that money. So maybe there's a different way to spin that narrative, but so I think, the process that you're lining out here, I think it's going to be difficult to make it feel urgent without it feeling rushed and like corners are cut. So I look forward to seeing, how that problem gets solved. But like, would next month be like too soon to hear back from staff about their views?
No, I mean, my opinion is that we've been in this like limbo space, and we haven't really been able to get so excited about it. When you can speak to that, and he's been the manager to this of me and the co-manager of me through this whole experience.
They're ready.
This emotion. We have talked, we also haven't had an opportunity to conceptualize save for outside of the building, but also knowing the day-to-day difficulties of this library, I think we're poised and I say we because I, managed and was an assistant manager and was in LA at Maine during my 17 years here, and it's this building has a lot of things, and so I think having the opportunity, like Steve said, we were taking this moment to talk with you all and before then beginning more of those in-depth conversations with staff, but we're ready to go with those conversations. I can't emphasize enough, like project construction and design, we work so closely with you all through all this stuff. And so it's like probably the department that we work the most successfully with. So I'm excited about partnering with you all to get the staff excited, as I've done with other remodel projects, including the refresh that we did at Maine a couple of years ago. So.
Would it be possible to open the discussion to, staff, like that should be done separately, but would it be possible then to open up the discussion to downtown business owners and residents, just to bring them in, tell them kind of what we're thinking? That, the thinking is, as Anthony pointed out, it's very expensive and maybe not really that cost effective to put all that money into this particular building. But if that's explained to them, meaning the residents and business owners, maybe they would not want us to do that. Maybe they would prefer to see us move somewhere else, I think. But I think, is it possible to move ahead with community input at this early stage?
We have already some business coalitions that we work with downtown, which would be easy to kind of have that conversation with good downtown Tucson partnership. Perfect group, good makeup of folks that we can begin to kind of have this dialogue. I think for me, the staff is super important as a first kind of step, but again, it's kind of one of those, what's the right sequence, right? And I thought this was the right sequence. I feel firm that talking with y'all first, giving you a heads up of what's going on, making sure we get a better understanding of your whole concerns, frustration about where we're at. But I think it would be a kind of talk to staff, get them a good understanding, get their signals before we talk to the community. I feel like figure out where they're at. If there's some excitement about moving forward, then we'll go to business. I guess every step I want to get some affirmations before we run parallel tracks and do some rewinds on messaging.
Point of clarification, I'm not trying to say we have $89 million. If you guys are of the mind like, hey, we would entertain this,
But 89 could be spent in so many different ways to still provide the service and have that downtown library where we're providing a level of service to people. That's all. That's all.
That spending is not a one-year thing. It's, I mean, to renovate this and keep the service open, that's another big component of this understanding. Working around operations, or is the library relocating while you renovate this? Like, that's a pretty tough thing to do while trying to still provide services. Relocating something across the street, whether it's Wells Fargo, the B of A building in the first floor temporarily, like, that's a huge cost, and it's kind of a sunk cost too. If we were to do that and try to come back, renovating, we've done projects where you're renovating while the building's occupied. It's stressful on the public, the staff, and it's high cost.
Librarians and construction workers. Just annoying. Some innovative things that we can think about and paint pictures of maintaining a downtown presence during the renovation so that people continue to have access is happening all over. If, you know, evergreen light on a building or to start conceptualizing with the building, then we're gonna be able to offer really exciting things. I'm very excited to talk about it anyway. So that's something we can do there.
Well, if the decision is to purchase the other building, we wouldn't have to close this library until that one's ready, right? So.
Assuming everything.
Unless.
That's right, yeah, there's that. I mean, that's always a possibility. Every day.
Ready to take the stairs.
Okay, any further discussion?
It does seem maybe some of the improvements to this building should be made anyway, like if the elevators really are like dangerous, maybe they
They're
should.
definitely not dangerous.
They're not dangerous.
It's not a joke, but there's a state inspects them,
Yeah.
if not annually, more than once a
The
year.
roof leaking,
I
Not
don't know,
more
they,
than usual.
No.
It's taken care of.
right, so maybe the money doesn't be, okay, maybe that.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to have an unsafe situation.
No, cute things that pop up, we definitely address regularly here with our facilities group. We get service requests for regularly, I mean, we had to do stuff today for an outlet that they had to come in. And we are regularly still doing our normal maintenance on the things here, so it is generally safe. I was just making a quip about, you know, you don't want to get stuck in an elevator, that's for sure, and, you know,
the phone's for it.
yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't very articulate in the building in the beginning, but I just wanted to say that it's not that we haven't been doing regular maintenance.
It's the big ticket items.
Yeah.
The facade's not a danger.
It's
It shatters when it hits.
the finding. Yeah.
Do you see quick wrap on any county buildings?
Quick wrap.
Yeah. The seismic retrofit.
Yes, yes, we have, in some of our older buildings and to increase loading and protect the structural system. Fiberglass.
Okay, so let's keep this as an ongoing agenda item. I really appreciate this conversation, this presentation. I think it's the conversation we needed to have. I feel like we have a more comprehensive view. I'm ready to move to the next item of business.
Just point of clarification on this next point of business. I was quoted by the three Sonorians last time of libraries of our size that serve a population of our size having about a $75 million budget. That's a bit misleading, just based off the data that we were looking at in the report. Only 5% of libraries that did respond were 500,000 population or more, but that went up to as high as 4 million. So a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Anthony.
You're welcome.
And we didn't really have anything more to present, just wanted to allow time because we presented about the budget last time. We didn't really have a lot of time to talk about it, so in case anyone had further questions.
Yeah.
Has it been submitted?
Our budget, yeah, was submitted back in January. The supplemental went before the board 4 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago.
4 weeks and then last.
Yeah, on Tuesday.
2 weeks and then last.
Hasn't been voted on yet, but.
It doesn't get voted on until June.
Right.
That's when it is done, and then the true final adoption happens in August.
I clarify something, there's been a lot of conversation about supplemental requests, both in the media and the board. Those are, where the concerns lie, were supplemental requests that are gonna have to come out of our general fund outside of the taxing districts. So I don't, these concerns haven't been raised specific to, supplementals where there's a funding source behind it. So I want to clarify those two things, that they may get conflated as concerns relative to the supplementals that are put by the market. So.
Great. Any other questions or questions about the budget?
First, one thing I wanted to talk about was the open hours issue, try to expand those, but I checked with Amber and she said it'd probably be best to put that off until April at their branch managers meeting on March 20th. So I don't really have anything to say about that.
Okay. Then let's move on. Molly?
Hi, everyone. I feel like I need something more serious to talk about. All right. Good. No, so Tucson Festival of Books is coming up. We had the presentation from Paulina last month. The press release I sent out, everyone should have gotten it, but it's on the website. So if you want to copy that link and share it with people, please do. It's got our entire schedule listed there, so it's easy to read and navigate and click on links. It's Women's History Month, so you can celebrate with us by checking out Canopy streaming video. There's a really great collection of films, documentaries, leading ladies, women directors, just lots of great stuff. Spring break, I know TUSD is this coming week. Amphi, which my children are a part of, is the following week. So I did a little filter on our event calendar. We have 223 events for children, teens, tweens, and families in that time span. So if you know families who are looking for things to do on spring break that don't break the bank, definitely turn to the library. I also worked with Nikki. She's in our CEO office. She's also a member of the Bibliolotus team. She did a really great interview with a Tucson Festival of Books author named Crystal Hannah Kim. She's the author of If You Leave Me and the Stone Home, which I immediately put on reserve after helping her with the Q&A and getting the blog post up. That's on our website right now. If you go to the website, it's on the widget on the left-hand side. It hasn't been picked off yet with newer material, so you can access that and read the interview. It's really great. So that's all I have. Let me talk about elevators. So, any questions?
So you guys can't cut the line for folds?
I mean, I think there's
Like Sierra, so.
there's probably an illegal way to, I don't know.
I'm trying to play fair.
We try.
It's gonna play by the rules.
Well, I feel like you need to read it first so you can advise people
Also,
about it.
I'm not a librarian. No.
All right, Renee, anything from you?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Well, question, oh no, we already answered the questions. Lisa.
I don't have anything new to add. I was gonna talk about the festival, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Still fun. If you haven't ever gone, please attend. It's an amazing event. We have some great staff that are there all weekend, so stop by and say hi. We have some amazing offers that Paulina mentioned last month. I don't have anything to add other than what was in my report. So if anybody has questions about the part.
But it's okay if you change the order of the reports next month, and then you can be. Okay, thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
I don't have much to add, except I want to welcome Monique. Services manager, Monique joined us. She previously worked at Make Way for Books. So, and at the library department.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Nice. Okay, ooh, this is fast, Anthony. Slow down.
No. Talk about PCAs, PCNs and HR, there's 11, if you notice on the vacancy summary, but of those 11, actually 6 have technically, or sorry, there's only 6 that are outstanding. 5 of them have actually already been filled. A good chunk of them started Monday. Yeah, and actually a great note is the admin manager one is supposed to post tomorrow for Aho.
Yeah.
So that's a big, because
That's
we've been
a creative job.
Yeah, we've been changing things with the help of our HR and central HR, they've been trying to get creative of how they could fill that position out there, of changing up requirements and the title, so we can get the commensurate salary that makes it beneficial for that leadership person, but sometimes the strict requirements of the librarian can make it hard to really get the right person out there, and we've been having to send someone out there to stay out there at the hotel. And so we've been having to pay for that, so that's been an added cost, but we're in a good spot if you have anything further on that.
Really excited about
Yeah.
that.
Me too. Vanessa sealed the deal for us. Vanessa and Laura have been great on our HR team and really kind of keeping us up to speed and just really trying to address some of the issues that have been really pushing us forward.
How is the staffing at Maine coming along?
So staffing at Maine, I will let you talk for that.
Staffing at Maine is, well, we've been in a little bit of an in-between.
Yeah.
We're hoping with the BCN to ask that we'll be adding some staff to it. So we're doing a little bit of a deep dive on the analysis, on that. But so far, it's been the same as it was last month.
So the reason I defer to him is because I don't really get involved in the staffing.
Yeah.
I work on with my HR and getting the PCNs and asking for the budget capacity, and I really leave the staffing up to the subject matter experts. I try to jump out of that. But to that point, we did ask for PCNs in the current fiscal year to address some of these needs. And we've had a lot of support from Steve and County Administrative.
Also very few closures
There,
on that's amazing.
right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion for Anthony? Amber,
Yeah, and you actually just said what I was gonna highlight, that,
doesn't it feel better when I say it first?
yes, you know, that's good. No, but and the closures were not due to staffing. So that's the great, the great takeaway. And, I don't think I have anything to add. Are there any questions you have for me?
Well, don't you have the big announcement?
Well, you already got the announcement, but yes, my retirement is imminent. Official retirement date is June 7th, but June 6th will be my last day at work. So, it's been an incredible 34 years, starting as a customer service clerk and all positions in between almost. So, yeah, I've been announcing at the staff meetings this week, and just really proud of the work that our staff has accomplished in all of these years. And it's been amazing. I've loved working with the Library Advisory Board too, and just really could never have imagined such a lovely career. So
Congratulations. Thank you, Amber.
But she still has 3 more meetings.
you can celebrate me every time.
We'll add it to the agenda, ongoing until July. All right, any motions, you guys? Maria, a motion perhaps?
No.
I moved the vehicle.
Thank you, John. That's what I was looking for. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Yes.
Yes, okay.
It carries. Thank you. Adjourned. Woo-hoo.